The humidity's kind of chilled out a little bit, but like it picked back up this week. July and August, the end of July and August was first part of August was pretty. We've had way more rain than we normally get as well.
I
So
was up in New York last week, and I used to live up in the Northeast. When I first met my wife, I met her up there. But yeah, a lot of humidity, a lot of heat, a lot of sweat, hard to dry out. Like being in Colorado now for 10 years, like I could sweat and then go outside and dry off in the heat.
yeah,
Kind of weird.
the and it's neat how you go to different places like out in Arizona. Everybody's like it's a dry heat. I'm like still 115 degrees.
You still melt.
Um, but it and then my son was in he was in Sarasota over the weekend, and as soon as I messaged him, I was like, "How's the weather?" He's like, "Humid." So it's Florida. Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. Let me tell everybody who we're working with today. I'm excited, man. I was reading about your bio, leadership, and we're going to get into some of your walk through your leadership journeys. What I'm excited about, Matt, and how your company you when we get into the resume, there's some big names, right? And it's really cool to for our guests and the folks that will be tuning in. But today's guest is Matt Dorman, co-founder of Endeavor, spelled Ndevr, a technology services agency that builds and scales digital platforms for major brands like Time, Johnson and Johnson, and Fox News. With over 20 years of experience, Matt has evolved from a developer who loved coding to a leader focused on building teams, culture, and systems at scale. He believes your website isn't just a storefront, it's an infrastructure that powers your brand, content, and revenue. Can't agree more, Matt. Can't thank you enough for being here. One of the things I tell business owners when they're coming out and budget for a new business owner, when you start talking website, numbers start going off in their head. And I go, listen, it's your first employee who's going to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's going to be, it's your brand. It's who you are, and whether people are going to like you, stay on your website, or leave. That's who we're talking about here. So thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
What what's a day in your life look like with your company?
Um, it's I would say typical, but probably not. So we've been remote since well before remote was cool. I moved out to Colorado 10 years ago with my family. My business partner, she stayed in New Jersey, and then later moved to Florida. But so our team has always been remote. So I start relatively early Mountain Time, finish a little late Mountain Time, but I have a lot of breaks in between. So I did my burnout and everything before I started my company. So I'm not a 7 to 7 type of guy and work the whole time. I take big breaks. Um, Anytime now, it's more breaks for myself, for my wife. My kids are almost grown and out of the house, so a lot of my work stuff just revolves around family stuff, honestly. Um, so I wear different hats as an owner. Depending on the day, depending on I come in what I come into, if my partner's around or not. So usually it's leading the company, but a lot of times I do hands-on development still.
Yeah, just reading, learning about you, I can see I could see where you've struggled, and I think all of us do of a little bit of knowing what you're good at,
Yeah.
and then being able to. Because I on my podcast, a lot of times I'll tell a story about the electrician who hired the person to run his company, and when you talk to the electrician, he goes, I knew I didn't want to be working or for someone else. He said, but when I started my own business, I realized that I enjoyed being an electrician. He hired someone that acts as the owner of his company. When you walked up, you'd be like, I speak with the owner. And they're like, the owner's inside pulling cable. What do you need? Like, oh, you need Mike over here. Mike's the actual guy that acts as the owner. So I totally understand it, and I think he has a unique perspective in how he approached his disconnect. But I wanted to learn more about yours. Is those defining moments when you were shifting as that freelancer or that day-to-day coder into that co-founder or that leadership role? What was that hardest like leadership lesson for you as you were learning to make and jump into that transition?
Yeah, those harder days were more about I thought it was going to be easier than it actually was. I had worked for a consulting company before starting this one, kind of in a leadership role. So the leadership side was pretty easy, knowing that I was leading a team below me, not realizing how many other teams there were within the company, I guess. So stepping into another level of leadership above people that they were not developers, right? So not better or worse. They're just different at doing the things that they do, and I don't understand the things that they do. So that leadership of like learning other things was hard early on because I kind of thought I knew all the things that we needed as a company, and then kind of stepping my like getting hit a little bit and at the knees and going down a little bit, a few levels, and learning from them in order to eventually lead them, those types of teams.
Where was you? All right, so like, where is Matt at? Are you young 25-year-old Matt, 18? Are you older, seasoned, just never operated in a leadership role? Where are you at kind of in your career path?
Yeah, I'm a 48-year-old.
I'm talking as you made this jump into leadership.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah. So I got put into leadership roles pretty early in my
yeah,
career. I not like big teams, but I always had one or two people. After maybe the third year, so by the time I was 21, I was managing other people
yeah.
in other roles. I was asked to do that sometimes, but also just by necessity of the role. And so since the very beginning of my career, I've bounced between in true leadership management roles, and then side by side within a team, kind of going back and forth.
And
From
I ask you that, we're not too far apart age-wise, right?
Mhm.
But I also remember I came out of public safety, so different, same similar roles. You may not have been leading within your department or your agency, but when you're in the community, you were seen as a leader. So earlier on, in a lot of those leadership roles. And I think one of the things that I noticed, and I was going to see if you shared this commonality, was sometimes when I was earlier on, my leadership style was making sure it got done, which meant I did it all, and everybody else kind of was able to, like everything else was like, oh, Jeff, we're going to get you to do this because, yeah, you just seem how to do it. I didn't know how to push back on that. I
Mhm.
was wondering if you had some similar experiences you was developing in. Was you a doer?
Yeah, I mean that's a crutch that I still even struggle with today of being able to do it. So therefore, I can get us out of the problem, if we really need it. Um, I've I've been hurt a number of times where I have thought that, and the problem was just too big for one Matt to accomplish, and we needed the full team to accelerate. Um, that's been something that it's a plus too sometimes, just being able to go in with the weeds, with the trenches, however you want to, whatever the metaphor you want to use, but being alongside people when things are hard, and then coming out of it together. It's definitely something it is a trait that's admirable or valuable, being able to push through like that, but knowing when to not do that and kind of get above everything and watch for the problems. Not that I struggle with it as much today, but I can identify it. I can see it. I can see it a little faster, even though I want to be in there with them. It's something I know I have to be doing something else.
I kind of packaged all that because of where it just took us. But I wanted to speak to that young leader, right? Is
Mhm.
that person who's like we were, that was coming out, or you don't? It's not your job your job is to make sure done is done, and we get paid for done.
Right.
But it's not your job to take on all of it. And I remember in some of my leadership roles, as I moved through public safety and into dealership roles, sometimes everybody else's hard ended back with me because they're like, oh, you can do this, no issues. And so I needed it to be done. So versus me taking time to develop the team and sit down and ask them those hard questions about, hey, what would this look like when you got it done, and pushing some of those things back. I just took the responsibility, had it done, and then the owner was like, hey, all we care about is you got it done. That's a big deal. But man, it was absolutely driving me bonkers. I was maxed. I was stretched very thin. Just because I struggle with delegation. And I think the other thing I would point out that you said, and I just did some content on this last week, and I'm going to do a video. So this is perfect to layer in with reactive leadership, responding, right? That's public safety. That's the fire call comes in, we run out and put the fire out, and that's gets associated in with well, what did you do today in your software company? Oh, I feel like I spent the whole day putting out fires.
Right.
And being very reactive versus design leadership, where we take those reactive moments that continue to fester, and we develop a plan to where we're managing those every day through a design plan. Those issues or what have you fall into a regular day to day or regular SOPs, or we have a policy or a procedure that's developed around that. So we're operating from purpose and not pressure. Um, I think what you just said is exactly that. And it's neat to hear that, how you framed it.
Yeah, I think the one difference there is I'm not a great policy procedures SOP type guy. I mean, I understand they're valuable, right? And I know that they need to be accomplished. I think the one other area that I've had kind of a good, I guess, results is allowing people to fail when I know that it'll be addressed soon, but it gets them, like, it gets your team to understand. The quicker you can get them to understand what done, like you're using that, like if they know what done is, what done truly is, then you don't have to come in and fix it. So if they fail and then they have to fix, they have to get it to that last 80%, or from 80 to 20, the extra 20, right? They understand how much effort they left on the table. Versus, the leader or the manager coming in and kind of finishing it for them. All they just know is, well, I got finished, so I must have been pretty close. So the more times you can kind of iterate through that, in reason, things can't fail, but things can, if they know that we're going to fail, and then they have these chance to fix it.
I'm glad you said you were a policy and procedure guy, because full transparency, neither am I. But sometimes but here's what I had added in, and some companies understand policy and procedure. Where I try to is I had wrote this as operating or adapting, being able to adapt tactics without abandoning. Right, so it allows is the policy shouldn't be restrictive, the procedure shouldn't be restrictive. Is we're looking for done. And the example I used to give my young guys that would come in, they come in fighting and just mad because he wanted to do it this way and he wanted to do it this way. And they would sit down with me and present their case, and I go, y'all understand we're trying to get to 10, right? And they would be like, what the crap are you talking about? I'm like, you're saying 5 plus 5 equals 10. His 9 plus 1 equals 10. We're going to the same place. Stop arguing about how we're getting there. You're both right. Just so that was a little bit of just their ability to adapt different tactics, and then having pre-established priorities. So when you know what needs to be, so in public safety, we used to have this term, and it's a little bit of cussing here, but we used to say, like in tactics, if you feel like your ass is hanging out, it probably is.
Right.
So old SWAT instructor I had, he would, because you have this certain feeling, you're standing there waiting to do your job or whatever, and you're like, man, I feel really exposed right. Well, guess what? You probably are. So you need to fix it. Same thing. It's just being able to teach that mentality sometimes as well, man. That's really cool. It's neat to hear that. Now take me down for that business owner and that entrepreneur or that person who's maybe are not so serious about their website, but you describe them as not just as digital storefronts, but infrastructure. What does that mean? And why do companies underestimate that?
Yeah, I think a lot of them assume, and some of this is right, is that the website is always going to be up there. They put it on a platform, nice, and it's inexpensive. And every time they look at it, It's always there. So 9 to 5, 10 or 8 to 6, whatever the time that they're looking at it for, it's always up. The reality is you have people coming at various times of the day. You said it's like that's your number one employee because they're going to be the face of anyone coming, right? That has to accommodate for all different time periods, all different use cases of how they're going to try to break your site. So the infrastructure being all of the underlying items. So if you're not familiar with some of these terms as a business owner, some of them you should learn. So CRM, how you're managing your contacts, your customers. You have those. So you have forms coming in, and they're going to be going to those places. Now, if you're just dealing with email, right, you have a lot of different points of failure. So those forms go to an email address, and they just send you an email. Well, that's great when email's working, but if it gets marked as spam or whatever, right? So there's all these different types of systems that add up to an infrastructure of just the website. Because when people think of a website, it's like, all right, there's my logo, my contact info, and my address. And if you're a physical address and you just need someone to get there, that might be enough. So most of the things I would talk about are going to be overkill. But if you're dealing with any kind of lead generation or sending out traffic to get more traffic, you're spending money on that website for eyeballs, and you're losing money because you're getting people that are there. They're not going to get their actual contact info.
I think you're spot on with that. There's a couple things that you said there. One is knowing those terms, and I try to teach business owners exactly that. Like, I need you to know enough that you're not taking advantage of if I'm not around.
Yeah.
Just to be able to listen to, if someone comes in and they pitch you the magic wand, you need to be able to say, okay, it's probably got some pixel dust in it, or you need to be like, yeah, you're full of crap, and because
Right.
it's just the nature of IT, and especially in the website world. That's a question I field a lot. It's like, hey, someone stopped by and said my SEO is this or my website is this, and it's not ADA compliant, and I'm going to get sued. And so there's all sorts of things that they deal with. So just to speak to this, what Matt's telling their business owners is educate yourself on the very basics. Connect with him, read his email newsletter, just something along those lines. And then the other thing I see is there's two things I wanted to tell you that I see as common. And when you get a lot of times is their flow. Like when I get in, I go, it takes me 7 steps to get on your email list. Like this needs to be a click. It doesn't. So and they're like, oh, but we wanted this and this, or a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there's all these things. And I go, yeah, but is that making us any money? It's attractive, but so then we explain bounce rate and things like, hey, this is why people aren't converting, or Google Analytics looking at our cart to show you, hey, you had all these people go into your cart. This is why they're not selling, or not, our products aren't selling, whatever that might be.
Right.
And then is making sure this is the example I use, and I want to hear your take on this. But like I told someone, your website should be you holding the front door up and then saying, hey, how you doing? I'm Jeff. How can I help you? Something to that matter, to where it's that welcoming, to where it represents you like that. How do you help folks kind of navigate those areas that I just threw out there? Because those are the common things I kind of hear and work with folks on.
Yeah, I think just thinking off the top of my head, like the welcoming part is really important. I see that for a lot of websites that they don't focus on that because they're like, well, here's all my stuff, right? Yeah. There's no connection there. And if you need to be if someone's coming there to maybe build a little trust or kind of learn who you are, that welcoming approach is really, really valuable. And the other swing to that would be knowing who is coming there, because they probably have a problem, right? They're probably they've identified that something went wrong, and they for the most part, I mean, sometimes they just want to buy something. I guess that's kind of a problem too, but they've identified a need or a problem. So being able to tell them that you understand that need, it's kind of a welcoming thing too, but it's a little different level, that you understand who they are a little bit more. If you can get those two things across, I'm sure there's other too. We are not a marketing agency. That's
Yeah.
we're actually working on that, maybe a phrasing around that, like we're not a marketing agency type of thing, because I like what you're saying, like a coach or a business coach will coach them on all the things, right? We've handled the technology part of it, but we realized, well, we could also, and we do coach our existing clients, but we don't really tell anyone we do that. Like, why aren't we telling them that these are the things we're doing as far as teaching them what a marketing agency could do and why you may not even need them. Because if you have a marketing person on your team or an owner that wants to learn that, then just learn it from someone. And then you can do it yourself. Especially, this is the dirty word of the day of AI, right? like it's taking away so much, but it's also adding so much for a business owner or any type of employee that wants to not utilize external resources in certain ways. You can learn a lot of that tool set.
You speak to a couple things there. The first thing I would tell you is you're spot on. That is now, I've been around digital since I was a little kid, and I enjoy technology, but here's where I really enjoy. And my first call this morning was we were back and forth, and finally here's what how it ended. As I go, you have a service, but you don't understand your people's problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's like what you said. This is where someone like I enjoy helping you to figure out your messaging, your customers' pain points, why they're going. So when we sit down with someone like Matt, we're going to load in like this is what we're looking for, and you're going to make all that make sense in the digital world. That's going to help our product speak into those messages and things like that. The other thing I think that I don't want to get overlooked is AI is absolutely one of the coolest things, especially for a guy who loves technology, that it's an amplifier of who you are. It can increase your authority. It can help you expand your knowledge, but it's really hard for me to take AI and do what Matt does. But I teach people how to take AI and do what I do. And how to load their business and how and how to get deep, but there's still a disconnect because sometimes they need a Jeff to come along and explain that, right?
Right.
So I tell people that like when everybody's nervous about using AI, and I go, it gives you more authority and the expertise that you already have. Can you go and teach how to learn the example I use when I'm live is I'll say, give me an outline on quantum computing. I don't know shit about quantum computing, right? But I'll be like, give me an outline if I was presenting. I go, listen, right here. All right, y'all ready? I'm going to teach y'all about quantum computing. Don't ask me any questions because I'm not going to be able to answer them. But I think it's the cool part of where you will evolve a little bit as a business owner and how you use just because of the technology and how it has evolved and changing. I think it'll absolutely. You've also we mentioned you work with some of the bigger, some massive brands, but you have probably some other clients in there as well. What's a common mistake that you see businesses make over and over again when they're trying to work or establish that digital platform or after they get going? Is there a common mistake that you kind of help rescue people from?
Yeah. Well, two areas. The most common rescue is that they use the wrong person to do the implementation.
Hey Matt, is that because did they go cheap?
Yeah.
Is that because see, that's what I tell people like, hey, dude, first
I
pay
mean,
it one time, man.
yeah, you can go inexpensive and be fine, but once you start going cheap, it's tough. Like the big companies do it too, and they do it in big failure mode. Like they're spending $1 million on cheap.
Yeah.
And then they have to spend $1 million to fix cheap to get to what could have cost 600,000. Like those are random numbers, but the same idea. Like if you spent $10,000 on your website, you're going to get a really good website, but you could spend $10,000 and get a cheap implementation. Unfortunately, if you don't know what you're doing, like it's weird to talk about just raw numbers because it's not the same as the output. And so that's like the easy, like what we see a lot. The other thing though, is for most business owners, like ourselves as well, you just forget about it. So your website's been up and maybe you're writing blog posts, but you're not really thinking about the messaging on the homepage where everyone might click from the blog to it, right? Or all kinds of interaction, like relooking at the entire, maybe an audit or something like that. And we do that somewhat, but if we did it for ourselves more often, I think we'd be in a far better place. Yeah, not actually taking the kind of care and tendering or gardening or whatever you want to call it of your own content on your site, on all your social media channels. Like we've gone through different messaging, and we forget to update our LinkedIn. It's like, why are we still saying that? It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot there, and this is what I tell everyone is, the example I could probably give you recently was I had a pair of AirPods Pro, and one of them fell out and I ran over the car. Just didn't realize that when I was getting out of the car, it popped out and I ended up running over it. So I bought. I was like, crap, So every now and then I found the knockoffs, and I ended up with like 3 pair of knockoffs, and they just wouldn't work. So I had spent
right
the equivalent in knockoffs of what I could have just replaced my AirPods, um, during the time. So same thing, folks. It always, when you get into business owners when they're starting out, a lot of times they're coming to the table of like, hey, I got this going. I'm going to do this. I'm like, okay, well, how much money we got dedicated into marketing? They're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And same thing with website. It's like, this is something to where Matt can help us if we know we're getting ready to start our business. We know we're getting ready to launch. Is it used to be, I'm fortunate to be able to say, I was working in websites in like 2007, 2005-ish, which is still probably a little later to the game than some of the guys I know. But we went from front page and some of the old early HTML sites into WordPress and some of those things. So I was a part of that, right? And now we can sit down with Matt and we could put this into our startup plan. We could put a website development plan that if we're going to get capital, if we're growing our business, whatever that looks like, because that's where that money can come from. Just having the conversation early on, I think, is what people miss.
Yeah, or even knowing like that you're going to eventually have to spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
If you're just starting your business, getting a site up is important. That doesn't have to cost the money that I'm talking about, or even the planning. But getting that up and then knowing, based like there's plenty of numbers that actually work really well, like 10% or 15% of your revenue should go into marketing. Well, that marketing includes people, ads, website, like there's all kinds of things. So there's different kind of, I guess, knobs or dials that you can press at different times. Because sometimes you need the people because you need them creating the messaging. But then when that's all ironed out, you're going to get a lot of traffic. So you make sure you have the infrastructure ready for it. So
Everybody has a website now too.
Yeah.
Versus 07, you go back when I first started in the game, was a lot of the competitors we were competing with, they were still in a magazine, they were in the yellow pages, they were phone book. It took and I still work in an industry to where some of the folks are non-digital. They still are pen and paper with a lot of stuff they do, but that's few and far between now. So the person who's going out and start, I'm just gonna get a website. I'm like, well, that has to be found. It's actually somewhat worse than trying to flip through yellow pages. At least the yellow pages would give you your very specific area. Yeah. Versus the national ads that pop up on Google or what happened when we're searching there. So I don't think that becomes an educational part that I think a lot of folks underestimate. That I'm just going to get a website, I'll be found. No, it's way more than that.
Yep.
And it starts at your level, dude.
Yep.
One of the things I was going to ask you about too was, I like using the word bottleneck, but you earlier on, you were the bottleneck because you wanted to do everything yourself, and we touched on that a little bit. But where did you find that let go moment, or just learning how to trust your team over time? That's Matt, I'm asking you that because I work with a lot of owners that just do not freaking trust people. and
Yeah.
quality of work or money. It comes from a lot of different areas. They just struggle with trust in general.
Right. Yeah. Luckily, I had a lot of work experience before starting my own business. I feel like I got this well understood before starting. So I spent a lot of, so I worked in New York. The IT tech people, we work in basements or windowless offices. So I spent a lot of overnight, 24-hour plus kind of things because I was the one people were like, I was going to fix it. So I was the one that's going to finish the migration or whatever we were doing. Those are my younger years. By younger, it wasn't even younger. It was like in my 30s. But still, so by the time I started my business, I knew that I could not be the, like, if things identifying when people were waiting for me, I had to do that fast, and that was just kind of stepping away from my day-to-day development. It's where I kind of bounced between, like, some days you opened up, like, what was my normal day? There is no normal day. So some days I'm hands-on because I have the freedom to be hands-on and working alongside the team. But sometimes they have problems, payroll, not like paying payroll, but like they messed up and they didn't, finish their W-9 or whatever. And now I have to go in and do that. So I need to drop everything and do that. So I know that I can't, handle all the tasks that are going to be due that day a lot of times. So managing myself of, like, the non-critical things to be able to be hands-on is one way. But I wish I knew, like, every day, like, exactly what I was going to be doing. I know a lot of, like, there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you, oh, you write your task list and then you get it all checked off. It's like, I'm looking at task lists right now, paper ones. I'm like, I got stuff from a month ago that I'm still not checking off because I have new things that are more important than that thing. And then every once in a while I throw out all my paper and I start again because that's my
Yeah.
process.
No, there's that's just being fluid in the process, right?
Mm,
But I also tell people what Matt's telling you is it's just we're triaging priorities all the time. Here's
right.
where don't confuse this. He's still getting stuff done. I work with a lot of business owners on they have notebooks and stuff that they just kept writing. And they
Mm,
have I'm like, well, because they might need an implementer or an integrator or they're that one person show or whatever. And I go, well, we need to take this notebook.
mm,
Let's take it. Give me 3 pages here. Give me top three. Can we get those out to someone? Can we delegate this out? So looking through their book, some folks get stuck in the book, and
yeah.
they're not able to do that. I teach this thing where I tell people, like, I know if you schedule, like you and I've known this has been on our calendars for a couple weeks now, that we knew we were going to be here today. So I kind of operate off of my calendar, but I have those pockets of time where I'm either putting something in where
Yeah.
I'm working on something for me. And
Yeah.
that's just allows fluid in my schedule. So when I go to bed at night, like tonight, I'm gonna look at what I got to do tomorrow, and then I'll build in. Like I'm teaching leadership. I'm speaking twice next week, and then I have a break before my next travel event. But I'm doing this leadership talk. So I've just been kind of working on my back and forth on my notes and what I want to have that as, right? That's what I
Right.
blocked in time for that. But it's when I wake up in the morning, if there's a sick kid or a happy kid or athletics and all these things, as I figure out how to make time for those. I wanted to ask you that while you're working through all this, there's kids, there's a spouse here somewhere, how are they influencing your leadership and how are they helping? Because it sounded, and I heard this earlier on, like everything else sounded like it took the back burner for your family obligations.
Yeah, that was early in my kids' kind of years. My kids are now 17, yeah, 17, 19, almost 20 and 18 actually. So senior high school and sophomore in college. So they're at the tail end of, like, the day-to-day stuff, but it's amazing how much they still need me.
Yeah.
And my wife along the way. So when I started my business, we moved out here. I made a lot of changes. I was ready to make a ton of changes. So I kept work within work and their time within their time. What I didn't realize, because I wasn't a manager of their time before that, was that they got out of school at 2:30, and I had an office in the house, like right next to the front door. that was hard for me to see them and still maintain the work during work for the next hour and a half or so, because I was working East Coast time a lot of the time. So it wasn't a ton of time after that, but still, like that mental, like, oh, I made this decision and now I can't do the decision I made. But now I do have blocks of time that are not movable in my schedule. This would have been one of those things, right? Like there are certain things that I cannot move. I have a lot of blocks in my schedule that are my time to get things done, and I have a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah,
As an owner, as just a person that can even the rest of my team has the same ability. Like we all work remote, so I'm fine with them moving things around. But because, like you said, kids stuff comes up, sporting events that should have been on the calendar start at 3:00 in the afternoon for some reason. Sometimes, so yeah, that's it. It becomes harder, but like if you're going to prioritize, you're going to prioritize that among everything else, and then work around it. I can always work later the next day or work later that night if I need to. So.
I also find a lot of times our kids play travel. I'll get the wife to drive, and she wheels a lot. I'll hook into my Wi-Fi connection, and I'll get stuff done in the car along the way there. Project just making the maximum use of my time. It's a couple-hour drive to wherever we're going. I find myself doing that, and then I have to balance this because I can get a lot of my conversational stuff or back and forth I can do on my phone. But if I'm not careful, my phone's consuming me
All
as
the time.
well. So I
Right.
have to, yeah, I'm on it. I'm on it way more than what I mean, I'm self-aware of it. I'm trying to figure that out. I put some blocks on my social time to where I get 2 hours a day. Um, 2 hours a day, but that's production time too. Like if I'm on there scheduling and this, that, and the other, that's part of that 2 hours that's blocked
Right.
into my phone. And then when it's done, I try not to go back to it. It's hard. We don't watch TV here. You'll find us finding a funny Instagram video or something other, but that's can be just as a negative habit. So I have to be mindful of that. What one thing I was going to ask you is we're wrapping up here. You start each day with a gut check, and on what is that most important task? And we were just talking about our scheduling. Um, Give us an example of how that gut check every day on your schedule is paid off in your business.
Yeah. So as technology people, we go with a Scrum mentality of like we go through that every day. So what did I get done yesterday? What am I going to get done today? And what are my blockers essentially? So, or what's going to block me? So my gut check for me is, did I get the thing I needed to get done yesterday done? Is it blocking anyone else? So if it's blocking someone else, I need to get that done the very first thing. And then I can progress to like, what am I doing today? Is it going to block anyone else? That's kind of where I kind of get away from the bottleneck area too. And if I'm not blocking anyone else or blocking kind of, and by anyone else, it could be my business partner too, because that's a lot of times where she's waiting on things for me to get done because we both approve everything. So that's the hardest, like, because those are all the top things that get lost on both of our sides versus our team people. So just evaluating that, what has to get done today that didn't get done yesterday, if anything, especially on Mondays. Like, what did I forget all last week? That was today. It's like, because I was out of the office quite a bit for a conference, so it was a harder thing. I got to work one day last week. So.
Man, it's there's what you do so important, and I try to echo that in every opportunity I get, just in what you do in your company and the problems you solve. And it's about pay. You're going what do we say sometimes in like health and fitness, you're going either get it done now or you're going to pay for it later, right? So it's but tell for the audience here, tell them who kind of an ideal client is, when they should pick the phone up and call Matt, and then how you would like folks to get in touch with you, if they need your help.
Yeah. I mean, an ideal client for us is someone that is, I don't like to put a dollar amount as some people do. That's more for targeting people. I like to know if you have someone concentrating on marketing, even if they're split role, or a dedicated marketing person within the company, and they are kind of either working with a marketing agency or trying to figure that out, they need someone probably helping with the technology support as well. So we do both the technology support and help train the marketing team or marketing person on not just website, but all your full digital platform. The best way to reach out to us would be through our website, endeavor.io, so NDEVR.io. But you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Matt Dorman, pretty simple. We have a red logo, kind of like my red shirt. So I'm not hidden.
Yeah, man, dude, I really appreciate you spending some time with us and letting me get to know you and your mission and learn more about you and just your journey, yeah, as a dad through making his way through life and founding companies. And
Right.
I'm probably nowhere near as tech smart as you, but we're carrying a lot of the same waters when it comes to parents and kids and things along those lines. So I really appreciate you letting me get to know you a little better. If there's anything that me or any of my platform can do, make sure you reach out to us so we can help you along the way, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Matt.